Thank you for attending Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 83. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Gang's all here. We got Gary, John, Luff, Garth, Mike, Dewan, Jim, John, Travis, Neil, Don, Phil, and other people. And we're going to have some fun talking about slot cars and everything related to slot cars. As normal, we'll start with some show and tell. I got a quick little thing I can show, but I'll let anybody else go first. Anybody want to raise their electronic hand or wave their actual hand, and I will call on you. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and do mine. John, do you want to show something off, Mr. Weber?
Yes.
All right. What you got today?
It's a project
Yay.
I'm kind of excited about, and it starts with a
3D print?
second gen 3D print resin Corvair Monza.
I thought it was a Corvair.
Excuse me?
No, I thought it was a Corvair. It keeps going in
I'm
and
sorry.
out, but yeah.
I can't hold it still. So anyway, there's the body. It was pretty rough. This is one of those inexpensive ones from eBay. I think it was $10. Anyway, lots of work to do. And some things were missing, and so there's still a lot of work to do, but I'm trying to find a chassis that will fit the real cars have the same wheelbase as a Camaro. So I thought, it's electric Camaro, Pioneer Camaro. So I ended up getting a Pioneer Camaro chassis, and it's a little wide. The track is wide. The wheels are too big. And I'm trying to figure out how to deal with those things so that they actually fit, so it fits and looks halfway decent. I'm trying to build a Yenko Stinger, which was a hot rod Corvair built by Don Yenko, the Corvette racer and Chevrolet dealer at the time. And anyway, there's the Pioneer chassis. And so anyway, it doesn't really want to fit very well. It's close, but no cigar. So I'm not really sure whether to cut away the wheel openings to make it fit, or try to alter the wheelbase of the chassis to make it fit.
You may want to try altering the wheelbase, John, and then you can at least use styrene strips to sort of put it back together as long as it's square. And that I would hesitate to change the body in any way, shape, or form, because it looks half decent. It looks like you've done some work to it already.
Yeah, I have.
Hey, John,
I've done a lot of sanding.
John, Mr. Weber, are you able to click on your video and turn off your virtual background?
Yes, I think. But
go ahead and give that a try, because when you hold up stuff in front of the camera, the virtual background sometimes covers up.
Okay.
That. So that's usually a setting. That's usually a setting on your computer.
I have a backlight, an LED backlight.
No, I mean on your on Zoom itself. You gotta go to your camera option, your video options, and then choose virtual background, and then choose none. And thanks Phil for that reminder. That when you use a virtual background, like a lot of us do, the computer tries to be smart about what it turns into a virtual background or not. So if you're not holding the thing in just the right position, it'll cover it with the virtual background.
Okay, I've also discovered, I don't know where, with the big screen, I don't know where to find there we go. Now I can find it. Choose stop. Choose.
Yeah, you don't want to stop.
Video.
Don't stop video. Choose virtual background, and then you basically go in and choose none in the virtual background choices.
Okay. Good.
And that basically turns off the virtual background, so we'll see your actual background, but then it won't cover up your cars and stuff. But then you got to turn your video back on because you accidentally turned your video off.
Okay. So maybe we could get a little bit better look at the body this way.
Yeah, be sure and click Start Video down at the bottom. You accidentally turned it off.
Welcome to Wheelboy Slot Car Chat.
Right. Okay, there we go. Let me spotlight you here. All right, so now grab that chassis and you can show us the body and the chassis and stuff a little bit better.
Okay.
I have a suggestion for Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Instead of cutting up a perfectly good chassis and re-gluing and all of that, there are adjustable chassis out there, such as PCS from Single Slot Racing. There's an FD adjustable chassis. There's some other adjustable chassis, and that way, all you're doing is stretching the chassis or shortening the chassis for the wheelbase. You can get any wheels and tires that you want for it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think Michael is holding up an HRS. Is that what you got, Mike?
Yeah. Well, I was.
So that's the Slotted product?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Do they work pretty well?
They work real well.
I haven't tried it yet. I've got it in for a T-Bird, but it takes a slotted pod, and if you've got problems with the width of it, you should probably go to an inline setup, so that you have enough tire at the back.
Was the Corvair too narrow for the Pioneer chassis or too wide for the Pioneer?
I can. It's not too narrow. The problem is the track of the wheels, the axles and the wheels is too wide to fit underneath the wheel openings.
Yeah, so
that's the biggest problem.
The great thing about the slotted solution and the PCR that Frank mentioned is, you're putting in regular parts. You're putting in parts that you can adjust and use spacers and put it exactly where you need it to be. I honestly, I would second that suggestion from Frank to use an adjustable, unless you can find a chassis, a 3D printed chassis or something like that specifically designed to go with that Corvair print.
Exactly.
I'm guessing that seller doesn't sell the chassis to go with that print, so you're going to need to get an adjustable chassis or construct one.
Right. Okay.
John, do you know the width across the widest part of the rear of the arches on your body shell? Have you got a measurement for that?
Yeah, how wide can it be?
The thing is, if your chassis will fit underneath the body, you can cut the axle to bring the tires in.
Yeah, you can only go so far because you need space for your wheel bosses and things like that.
Yeah, then it hits
and this is a Sidewinder chassis, which is what I wanted to use, but
you're right. You can't.
There's not much you can do about changing the axle length because the chassis is a certain width.
The wheels are right up against the
bearing purchase.
The wheels are already right up against the bearings or the bushings.
Right, pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
And that's where your inline chassis, you can cut the axles down to whatever width you want them to go underneath.
Well, it's the distance between your bushes that dictates your axle width, and then the choice of wheels.
Yeah.
I think a slotted motor pod can go as small as 57 millimeters. Don't quote me on that, but I think I've got one down underneath 60 by choosing the correct wheel.
Do they have an angle winder for the slotted as well?
Yeah,
they do, but you won't get a gear in between the wheel and the bush and still get the narrow width.
Exactly.
For a narrow car like that, it's going to be hard to get anything but inline. You might squeeze a Sidewinder under there with some narrower wheels. But yeah.
Okay.
Got some experimenting to do there, John.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Anybody
else have a suggestion for John before we move on?
Oh, you could always turn it into a sports sedan. As a photo I put up there.
I didn't catch that.
Turn it into a sports sedan, like carve out the wheel wells and put flares on it?
Oh, yeah.
There's a photo of one that raced in Australia out here years ago.
Here's a question for you. Scalextric axles, will they fit a Pioneer chassis? Are they the same diameter?
They'll probably fit, but I mean, the problem is that both with Scalextric and Pioneer, actually, no, I think Pioneer uses smooth axles, so you might be able to get them off. But a Scalextric is going to have knurled axles and the wheels pressed onto the knurled axles. So once you tear off a wheel from a Scalextric car, it's not going to fit very well on anything else, on even what you tore it off of.
Scalextric has several models that use a smaller diameter wheel, mini light, which I would like to have a mini light wheel anyway.
Yeah.
They use a smaller diameter wheel and tire on the Caterham models and Escorts and things like that. And I thought about getting some of those, but I didn't know if they would fit the Pioneer chassis.
John, can we have a closer look at your chassis? Can you hold up the chassis so that we can look at the top?
And John, when you take a look at Pendle Slot Racing site, they are going to have different size tires, width, diameters to go along with the chassis.
Show me the top, John. So it looks like your bushers pop in. They drop in vertically.
They do.
Yeah, for the Pioneer, both front and rear are pop in.
Yep.
So if it's a pop-in axle, then he doesn't need to remove any wheels from any axles. He might be able to pop a Scalextric in place.
At least in the front.
If they're the right width. Yeah, if they're the right width.
Right.
If your bushers are similar, you need to remove that axle, that rear axle, and measure your bushers with a vernier caliper, and then compare those to the same dimensions that you're measuring on a Scalextric bush, because the Scalextric might just drop into there, but I don't think you'll get anything any narrower than what you've got right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the wheels outer, the extremity of the rear wheels is the same as the front wheels, but the rear wheels are wider than the front wheels, but the wider goes inwards, not outwards.
Yeah, and especially with using an S-can like that as a sidewinder, that takes up quite a bit of space as well.
Yeah, it's your spur gear that's the problem. Switch for an inline. That way you'll get the things narrower.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, unless there's a specific reason you wanted sidewinder as opposed to inline, or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No really good reason.
Okay.
No really good reason.
All right. Well, you've got some things to think about and shop for. So let's move on to Mr. Kit. And what do you have to show and share, Mr. Kit?
Well, I actually have, again, the continuing saga of our Group 935, if I can just share this. And so I actually have it prepared for casting. So as you can see here, I use basically painter's tape reversed out to block off all the areas that we don't want the rubber to flow into, and that includes the wonderful little front vents. So hopefully you can see, let me punch that up a little bit so you can see that there's tape in there. So hopefully you can see that. So that'll be, so I just thought I'd show you the steps taken just before the mold box was made. So sorry, excuse me, getting excited here. And so the tape was put all the way around on the inside of the car, and then the car was filled with clean clay so that it had some substance, so that the tape doesn't get deformed during the pouring of the silicone. But I also put tape in the wheel wells, and they're angled, if you can see this, at about a 45-degree angle. And the reason is a couple of reasons. One, it really helps to pop the body out of the top mold. And two, because when you pour the resin, this is essentially going to be upside down, the bubbles will rise to the top, and the wheel wells hopefully won't capture any sort of bubbles, even though we do everything we can, including casting under pressure to eliminate them. And then there's the good old ball of clean clay, and then you can see the clay underneath, and everything's raised up about 3/8 of an inch, and that's going to have rubber underneath so we can get our lovely undercuts. So there it is, just ready for the box. So I just thought I'd show you guys the progress so far. And that's it.
Looks good. I think you did this once or twice before.
Yeah, and I also have a daughter who's even better at this than I am. And oh, you know what I want? Again, I have to give her credit where credit is due. I should zoom this in. I keep talking about, the door handles that cast out. And if you take a look, you see that little plug of clean clay in there?
Yeah.
So that's what enables this door handle to be cast that way. And then there's a little line that you press in on the body side and the handle side. So when it pops out of the mold, this piece of resin, you just sort of nick it out with something pointy and it pops right out and you have your door handle.
Nice.
How cool.
So that makes it, yeah, again, you're trying to make it as race resilient as possible. But yeah, we're going to go for the glued in rear wing, as I mentioned before. That would just be a little too much. So there you go.
That looks great, John. Looks
Oh,
great.
thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
So the wing is cast separately?
Yeah, it'll be cast separately. Yeah, again, it'll really help with the production of the bodies. It could be done that way, but it just takes a little more manipulation with the silicone mold.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you, John. Looking forward to that. And next on my screen is Mr. Neil. What you got to share and show today, Neil?
That's Guerrero to you.
Guerrero.
Or Guerriero.
Guerrero.
So I have just a couple things.
Ah, Pioneer Legend.
Yeah, it's a build kit.
Interesting. I didn't know they sold so they, did you do that paint job?
No, it's a painted version.
I didn't know they did a painted build kit.
Well, this is just like the one that they actually sell completed. Same colors, scheme and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But they sell it as a kit form.
Cool.
And I also have.
Ooh, shiny.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Hey, I'm
Zoom.
driving. Quit showing cool stuff.
You're going to have to watch it later, Frank. Watch the road.
You blocked up, Frank.
Yeah, Neil froze up. Can you still hear us, Neil?
Almost, Frank?
Oh, there you go. All right.
There he is.
No worries. We saw the really pretty car.
That's all. That's it. Just
All
those two
right.
things.
All right, perfect. Thank you for sharing, Neil. And next up, we got Mr. Gibkey. What's going on, Chuck?
Howdy, guys. Since you guys have all the pretty cars, do you remember my ugly car from a couple of weeks ago, the Revell Baja buggy? Well, I didn't really like the Sleepy Hollow theme without the head. So I did have a head that fits. And so I compared it. I don't know, hopefully you can see this. I compared it with
Put your hand behind it and go really close to the camera with your hand behind it, like this.
Okay, like this.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, it's still a little fuzzy. I don't think my camera has autofocus. So
That's not too
anyway,
bad.
this one here was the head that was in another Baja buggy, and this is a standard 132 driver head, which you can obviously see it's not the same size. So I'm figuring that this was 1/24th. So I grabbed one of my Cox heads and compared it. Let me see if I can get these up there at the same time. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's much closer to the Cox head. Yeah.
It's definitely bigger. So I ordered another 1/24th from Professor Motor, and this one's still a little bit big, but I think it's adequate for using in the buggy. It's just that I guess there's no standard size for a helmeted driver head. But,
whatever looks good, right?
Yeah, whatever looks good. So I'm gonna probably use it.
Depends on what helmet size he wears.
Yeah, maybe he's got a big helmet.
Yeah, so,
And I'm sure Charles Revell, when they made it, was what's in the bin.
yeah. And it's a Dune buggy. Normally their stuff is all 1/32. All they do have some 1/24th cars, like I think it's a couple of Lotuses and something like that. But that was interesting to find out that, okay, it doesn't ever say on the box or anything that the buggies are actually 1/24th or 1/25th, but they are. So anyway, that's my so the buggy here is back to it's going to get some renovation here and get heads and the roll bar and flags, and if I ever do that, I'll show you guys.
Awesome.
Well,
What do you
to
take
your
the roll
point,
bar
Char-
out?
Oh, sorry.
I didn't take the roll bar off and I didn't take the head off. That's how it came. So they're easily broken. And so I'm going to probably use some type of a wire replacement for that. The other things is that the little headlamps and stuff, a lot of times you'll find one of those missing. So it's just kind of take them as you can and fix them up.
Right.
Well, to your point, Charles, you know, those cars may have been, like the bodies may have been designed to fit the chassis. So they could be between 124th and 132nd.
They could be, yeah.
It could be like 1/30th, like the Legends cars are 1/30th.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. It's something between 132nd and 124th. But that's it.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Looking forward to that. And next on my screen, I got Dwan. What's up with you, Dwan?
I usually don't do many, I guess, do car shows, but this is Mr. Slot Car.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's a Gulf delivery, obviously. The Mons.
Is that the McLaren?
Yeah, that's McLaren F1, right?
I thought it was BMW.
That's a McLaren F1.
That's the
F1.
engine.
F1.
The engine's BMW, apparently.
F1 LM.
Yeah. So okay.
Have you gone around the track with it yet?
I have, and I actually want to have a probably off session question with Chris, because I find the gearing, it goes around the track fine, but when I move the gears by hand, I can get them to unmesh or just actually have a gap between the gear and the pinion and the angle winder. I'm going down to Electric Games tomorrow. I'm probably gonna let Dennis look at it too.
I was gonna say, I'm sure Dennis can help with that.
Yeah, do that.
That's where I got it
I'll
from.
be there.
That's where I got it from. And I got that, and then I have a little collection here. I don't know if you can see. Geez, not very in view.
Oh, you are just on a spending spree.
These are my little cars that's going to be embedded with the kits that I put together for.
Oh, your gift giving?
Including those vintage Revels, Dewan?
Yeah, some of them I'm going to give them vintage Revels because they'll appreciate them. A couple of my classic guys, but some of the newbies to it, I'm keeping the vintage stuff, and I'll kind of refurbish them and get them kind of spooked up and let them have some of the newer cars. So that's the concept.
Oh, that's awesome. Those Revels are just awesome.
Yeah, they run really well. They really do run well. I change out the tires to the Pro Gauge tires, especially the ones that have turned it to solid rock, and they go around the track quite well with 12 volts.
And these are going to be prizes for something?
Gifts.
Gifts.
Well, yeah, they're going to be gifts, and
How do I get on that gift list?
I literally have 6 Gran Turismo sets and a couple of Atlantica sets that I'm going to be giving out, and a couple of specialty sets. So I think I have about 8 packages I'm going to be giving out, and I have about another 8 that I'm probably going to clean up and have as fully refurbished Revell sets for people that want to have vintage Revell sets that they can purchase. So
I nominate calling you Mr. Revell from now on.
Right. Welcome, Mr. Revell.
Yeah, so that's what I have for now.
All right, thanks for sharing, Dewan. It looks like it's my turn, so I'm going to do my quick little share here.
What happened to my hand? I had my hand raised.
Oh, I think I accidentally lowered it when I was lowering Dewan's hand. That's what it moved. Well, I'll do mine, and then I've already got my share started, so I'll get to you real quick as soon as I finish.
That's fine.
So you should be seeing HO cars on an HO track with a little fence. I was contacted by a guy who has HO about my fence, my 3D printed, crash wall and fence. Could I make it HO scale? So yes, I scaled it down. 65% was a nice percentage, and this was the test print to show the scale and how it looked. That's a micro scale electric track, but it's it's HO track, and then a couple of HO cars, and then the wall. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that Porsche looks really familiar.
Yes, I wonder why I have that particular Porsche. If only it were the correct livery and or I was good at painting. But yes, so yeah, I bought that because it's the right form factor. And then there's my Frey car that I brought home from Wisconsin. The other thing that I wanted to share is I'll save it for later. So Dennis, go ahead.
Okay, the latest from RevoSlot just came into Electric Dreams yesterday or the day before. This is another F1 GTR McLaren. Standard RevoSlot underneath pretty much. Pretty much the same performance as the rest of them, but very, very pretty car, beautifully done. They have two of them. They have this one, the red San Miguel, and they have the black Ueno Clinic, the Le Mans winner. So those two liveries are out now, and there's a white kit. So,
very nice.
They are a very pretty car.
RevoSlot are fantastic, just straight out of the box.
We are getting so many people buying them now, and Duane will probably tell you that whenever you see me at Electric Dreams, all I'm doing these days is grinding tires on RevoSlot cars. Every day. I think I did maybe a dozen over the last two visits to Electric Dreams. Yep.
I mean, and mine have run pretty good out of the box. Obviously, tire chewing helps no matter what, but yeah.
It helps a lot, particularly on the big fast track like Electric Dreams.
For sure.
They just get so smooth and so quiet, and everybody loves it.
Got any tips for people who want to true those tires? I assume you're talking about stock tires.
Yeah, I'm talking about stock tires. The first thing is, if you have a Hoodie tire truer, then the best way to do this, just take the axle out of the car and use that in the Hoodie tire truer to true because the normal Hoodies come with a 332 mandrel, but the piece that runs through the bearings is 3 millimeters, which is the same as the axles in the RevoSlots. So that's the first thing. Use one of the axles in the Hoodie machine. Just take the one pulley off and put the axle through. When you grind the front tires, they're really easy because they're very hard. So they grind quite easily until they're flat and they get a kind of a little gray, matte gray color, dark gray. They're easy. The rear tires are very gummy. And I struggled a lot before I hit on a way to do this. You turn the voltage up instead of down. I've been running it at my Hoodie at like 5 volts instead of 3 volts. And you feed it in, you feed the rubber in until you can just hear it touching, right? And then from there, you start with this funny system of you feed it in very fast and quite deep so that the drum really bites into the rubber, and then you feed it out straight away. If you watch the current draw on the power supply that you're using, it probably jumps by about 3 amps, like from 2 amps to 5 amps, right? As you do that, and you feed it in and you feed it out, and you feed it in and you feed it out. And the harder you do that, if you really get it to bite, you can actually hear the drum biting through the rubber rather than just skimming the surface and making it hot. So you feed it in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and then you'll start to hear, as it gets rounder and rounder, you'll get a more even sound out of the feeding, and then you can start reducing how much you're feeding in. But even then, you get to a point where it's almost round, then put the side stop, the repetition size stop that's on the Hoodie. Put that in position and back it out to that and in, and back it out and in, and in, so that you're moving the tire in and out from that stop until the voltage, the current draw drops back down to normal. It sounds kind of strange, but it actually worked pretty well.
And the reason for that is to keep the rubber from heating up and gumming up, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Because if you try to just tickle it off and tickle it off and tickle it off, it just heats up and then you don't get anywhere. And that's where I was saying, oh, now you need to use lighter fluid or this or that. The next thing, this way I'm doing them dry all the way through until they're done, and then polishing them with lighter fluid and a diamond file just to get them really smooth and around the edges and things like that. Yeah, it's kind of tricky, but I hit on it by mistake a couple of 3 or 4 weeks, a couple of weeks back, and it works.
That's awesome. I'm gonna clip that out as a tip of the week because that's exactly the kind of stuff that we want people to know about.
Now, Dennis, how did that happen by accident? That kind of stuff intrigues me.
I think what happened was that I was working on this, and something distracted me while I was doing it, or I had 2 things going at once, and I turned it, and either I turned the wrong screw or I turned something, and it really started drawing a lot of current and biting into the tire. And as I looked at the tire, I thought, oh my God, this is gone. And then I realized, hey, but from the look of the tire, it's not gone, right? So I thought, oh, hang on a moment, let's try this again. And so on the next tire, I tried this, and then after that, it's just a matter of refining the process a little bit. But I realized that's the way to do it. You've got to get that drum, the grinding drum, really to bite into the rubber. Those first couple of things. So you turn it in, you know, but be ready. You put it in and you pull it out, like a second on the grinding wheel and out again. Second in and out, a second in and out, and then you know, maybe 4 or 5 seconds off the wheel, and then 1 second on the wheel.
So that was your ivory soap moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to agree with that, seeing as I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you think the same type of method would work on the tire raiser? Pushing it down, lifting it up, pushing it down?
I'm gonna have to try it myself to find out.
Probably.
The tricky bit with the tire raiser, you know, you have to turn that crank a lot and then basically back it off again. And then when you
it might not be as easy with that. But I mean, I was feeding it in probably, you know, when you turn the knob to feed it into the drum like that, I'm probably feeding it in about 15 or 20 thousandths of an inch with each turn. So it's really going in and biting and then pulling it straight out again.
Yeah, the main reason I can think of that it might not work very well with the tire raiser or even other tire raiser style machines is that, you know, even if you're moving that plate side to side or you got a machine to do it, when that tire hits hard and fast, it
bounces,
kick the plate. And
the other thing, what you possibly could do with a tire raiser is to take the slide out from underneath.
Oh, and then just jam it in there.
No, crank the axle down a little further, and then put the plate in sideways into the front of the groove, and then just push it forward onto the wheel.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
So
and you know,
that, guys.
You were saying just a few thou when you're doing it.
20 is not a few. 20
is a lot. But it's still a very, very small amount, right?
Yeah,
you're basically just putting enough pressure on there that
to really make the grinding wheel bite into the rubber.
Yeah, so
you can hear it.
Yeah.
And the hoodie, can I say it, has 80 grit paper on it.
That one, the one I'm using at Electric Dreams, is a stock hoodie grinding drum. I don't know what the grit is on those.
It's pretty coarse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could even be
but it's fairly new, so it's nice and sharp still too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've mentioned before that I use the coarsest material that I can find for my tire raiser because I don't care about polish. But you could always, get another plate, put something really coarse on to get trueness, and then put another plate with something finer to get the polish.
But if you stop the If you stop the machine while you're doing this process and look at the tire, you could see it. You could see that it's actually really being ground away. The surface is not, it doesn't look very good, but there's no evidence of melting or gumminess, which is the nice part about it. And then later on, you could start, when you're very close to completely true, you can start with much lighter touches, still moving it and coming off and moving it in and off and in and off and in and off until you're really tickling it, and that will smooth it up a lot.
Greg, that's a good tip of the week that you just said too, on the tire razor to use quartz or sandpaper, because I followed your tip when you mentioned that a few weeks ago, and boy, my tire's coming out much nicer, much quicker, and the quartz, I was using like 600 grit, which is way too expensive.
Yeah.
Like, is this on rubber tires, Frank?
I use it for everything. But I'm not a perfectionist by any stretch of the imagination.
I use that shit on everything.
I don't have any abrasive on my slide. I don't have any abrasive on my slide. I use paper abrasives and put it on the slide and use it on the slide, and then remove it, replace it with another one. Just put it there and don't glue it down. Don't have anything fixed to my slide. I use the slide, but just put a piece of sandpaper that's way bigger, rotate the sandpaper and use a different corner. But I'll start truing on a 180 grit and end up down at 600, and I can get polished from 600. So yeah, I agree with the old.
On which tires, Dwayne?
Mostly slotted tires, I've got to say.
Okay. Yeah, because if you started with 180 on an NSR Ultra Grip or Extreme Grip, I think you wouldn't get too far too quickly.
I have had those in my truer just the once, and the big lesson was that they will ball up, they will heat up and ball up. Yeah, and I had to modify my approach, but the approach was just to be really, really gentle as opposed to normal. Less so than normal, less cut than normal.
Yeah, that's usually my approach, but we've now learned that that's not an effective approach for the stock Revo slot tire. So I will not do my normal approach when I do Revo slots. I'll try that.
Well, when I finally win a slot car, it might be a Revo slot.
Never. All right. Thank you very much for sharing, Dennis. Big Den, you've got your electronic hand up. What is happening in your corner?
Well, I'm back on air this week after a couple of weeks missing with appointments and things, but I was a bit concerned last week. Someone made a comment about they didn't care for magnets. I looked up at the screen and there was a blank position. I thought Michael had fallen off his chair or something like that. So it's good to see him back up and about today. When it comes to tire truing, I'm actually a 2-plate family. So I've got one plate with the coarser sandpaper on it and one with the finer. But just for the show and tell part, I come across this thingy body. It's quite an unusual thing, so I'll put it up there for you.
That is interesting.
Dennis might have an idea what it is.
A Model T with a Formula One wing?
No, not quite.
What's the
No, in the 60s, people did a lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs.
No, I know what that is. I know what that is.
I agree with you, John.
All right, what is it, Dennis?
We've done that before. When you buy a slotted car or you buy
it's the protector.
A poly car, that vacuum form protector that's inside. That one comes out of a Polycar Formula One.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
No way, really?
Yeah.
So I've christened it the Polly Wagon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's funny.
Awesome.
That is funny.
That's what they are. Yeah.
And I will find a chassis for it and get it running. So
hell yeah.
Stay tuned.
Holy God. Now, you know what's going to happen? Polycar is going to start marketing those darn things.
Yeah.
I confirm he's true. It is one of those.
Yeah,
They'll market it as a second body. You get this extra body for free with your purchase.
Hey, Big
That
Dan,
sure-
I got a great idea for a decal on the side. How about pizza delivery?
It's got a built-in pizza oven.
That sure sounds like a tip of the week.
Free Lexan body with your purchase.
Yeah. Was
Well,
that yeah.
In the
Prices
early days, in the
go up
60s,
now.
there was somebody, was it Classic, I think, when they sold their Manta Ray, they sold that with either the Manta Ray or one of their thingies. They sold it with a thingy body and a Lotus 30 body, and the whole thing was packaged inside the Lotus 30 body, as I recall. Something like that.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, I told them about that, Dennis. Okay, that'll do me for now.
All right, thanks, Big Den. That seems to be it for show and tell. In case I'm not seeing anybody, raise your hand or wave your hand. Seeing none, we will move on to. I was gonna do a tip of the week, but I'll just save my current tip for next week because we just got a great tip out of Dennis. So you guys will hear my tip of the week next week. Does anybody else have anything they want to do as a tip of the week type thing? You can save it for next week, or you can do it now, and I'll save the tip itself for some other time. Since I see none, then we'll go to Club Corner. If you've got a Club Corner, hit your raised hand. Garth, do you got a Club Corner, or did you want to ask? All right, take it away, Garth, with Club Corner.
Okay, I got to share screen. Okay.
Awesome.
Let's see if I can get it here. Got that?
Yep.
Okay. We started our normal slot car thing, and this week we're going to do Ferraris. Okay, we usually do pairs of cars. Okay, either two or three pairs of cars. Okay, so this is the first set. A couple Ferrari 312s with H&R motors and silicone tires and magnets. Okay, for Mike. Okay.
There's other magnet people here.
This is a second set. This a couple poly cars that I've actually had for about a year, but I've never actually got them to run very well. So I've been working on them, and I got a couple of NSR 30K motors in them, and some super tires, and they go like stink now. So that's going to be our second set, and then our third set is going to be these F40s. Okay, kind of a combination of polycar and slot.it parts glued together, and 38 or 39K brush motors with magnets and silicone tires. That's it. So those are our three for this week.
Do you ever upload videos of your cars racing around, like to YouTube or anything?
No.
Because 39K, those things have got to be screaming.
Oh, they're bitching fast.
Yeah. And I know your track is long, and it's basically, drag strip after drag strip connected by turns, but
250 feet, and with that kind of car, it's 14-ish seconds at 250 feet. They really go.
Well, if you ever feel the desire, I'd love to see a video of one of those cars screaming around your track. So, take a video with your phone and put it on YouTube. Whatever. Love to see it. But thank you for sharing and sharing your super fast magnet cars. And Mike, the other super fast magnet car guy, is next up with his hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
Just in fitting, I took the magnets out, and there were just two of us this week because one guy had a doctor's appointment, and we ran a couple of Thunderslot cars, which are absolutely useless as magnet cars. So I figured I might as well make them into a magless car and run them that way. And I used a lot of the throttle curves from RCS 64 and kept the voltage at stock voltage for Scalextric. And it went really well. We really had a good time with them, really close racing. We qualified within a thousandth of a second of each other. So, it was close. So and it came down to who stayed on the track the best and who flubbed the least. And it worked out. And then we switched cars just to make sure that it wasn't just one was better than the other. And I got lucky. I won both of them. So I was happy about that. But the second one I won on a pit deal. So I was a little behind. But yeah, and interestingly enough, I think we went off the track less with those than we did with the magnets in, because we weren't pushing quite so hard, because we knew that it could come out really easily, and the concentration level had to be really high. But nonetheless, it was great fun, and I think we're going to do it again. I've got another Thunder Slot on order, and so I have 3 of them at least that are the same, and we'll see how it goes. It got my wheels turning and working on other kinds of tuning on stuff like that. So now I would like to know if anybody else has spring suspension on the some of the cars, and if that makes a significant amount of difference to as opposed to not having them sprung, or just using little washers or something like that. So
I mean, basically the spring suspension and the little washers and tape across the pod, they all more or less do the same kind of thing, which is to, dampen the motion of the pod while allowing it to move a little bit. So if you want to just experiment with how that improves, then the first thing I would do is just, maybe give the screws a little bit looser than you have them now. I don't know how loose they are now, but assuming that they're maybe a half a turn or a turn, maybe loosen them a little teeny bit more, and then just lay a big wide strip of electrical tape or packing tape, or the tape with the strings in it, or whatever you got handy, across the bottom of the chassis, crossing the pod, and drive it around, and you'll be amazed. If you haven't tried that before, it's just an astounding difference, just laying some tape across the bottom of the chassis.
Yeah, I have tried that. We do that with the 124th cars that I run, with the 2-piece chassis, the steel plate chassis, and that's you change the placement of the tape and stuff like that, and that makes a difference. Yeah. But I was wondering if the springs themselves are actually a better alternative, gives you a little bit more adjustment, if they're worth the extra weight. That's all.
I mean, I've tried this. I mean, I have various cars with various spring suspensions. I have an NSR with spring suspension. I've got the Fly Racing that comes with spring suspension. I've also done the slotted magnet suspension. They all work great, so it's about which one gives you the performance characteristics you like.
And they all work better on plastic than on wood.
Yeah, that's
really?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
The wood's too smooth. The wood tracks are
okay.
so smooth, you don't really need it.
Yeah, you don't really need it unless the wood track is not a very good wood track.
Okay.
The benefits are primarily for sectional track, especially track that finds its way into bumpiness, like the soft plastic of Skeletric or Ninco track, as opposed to harder. But even with
maybe I've got to be a bit more politically correct and say sectional track instead of plastic.
I mean, yeah, there was a thread on, I think it was Slot Forum, but anyways, one of the forums, a guy bought a bunch of used track, and he's like, he bought a bunch of Carrera track, and it was bowed, like a straight piece of track on a flat surface was like, in the center was like 3 or 4 millimeters, which is, you could see that with your naked eye, but it's not enough for it to be one of the 4-piece, bridge tracks that are actually intentionally bowed. Those would be like 3 or 4 centimeters off of the table. So, that's hard plastic. How did it get that way? But then how do we get it back to flat? And people were all kind of, clamp it and bake it and, all this stuff. And, you might just end up having to replace it.
Buy a new piece.
Buy new pieces. Yeah. But yeah, suspension of any kind is to help dampen bumpiness. And have you tried the tape stuff on your 132nd cars?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, grab some grab some suspension kits and try them out. See what you like better.
Well, I've got a new NSR Porsche that came with it, and I took the magnets out of that one, and I'm going to see what happens with this. But I was wondering if anybody else had any experience with it to maybe get a heads up on whether it's worth spending the money on them. They aren't that expensive, but I mean.
You know, are any of the things you do worth spending the money on?
The thing that my experimentation with the slotted magnet suspensions were that as supplied, the magnets are too strong.
Yeah, they're pretty strong.
And so what you really need to do is they do have alternate magnets that are smaller and or thinner, or both. And so I used to use one of the big ones and one of the smaller ones opposing each other. And then you can adjust the amount of
the distance.
The amount of repulsion that you've got, as well as the distance. Yeah. You know, I always set them as far apart as I could get them anyway, to try and get them soft. But with the two big disc magnets, it's a little too strong for most cars.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I'm going to set up a couple of 3 slotted Porsche 956s. I've got them in various liveries, and that way we can use those as non-magnet cars too. So we'll have a couple of sets. Interesting thing about the non-magnet thing is that we went to our magnet stock cars, which we usually have a lot of trouble with. Man, they were fast.
and they probably felt like they were easier to drive.
Actually, no, because you couldn't. You were sort of. It was so different right off the bat that it was really difficult to compensate right off the bat. I think we spent about 20 laps practicing before we finally got to where we could make a couple laps without flying off. It was pretty funny.
What kind of chips did you use in the Thunder slots?
I actually used Scalextric's chips.
The most recent DPR chips or the old solder-in chips, or?
No. Come to think of it, no, the newer ones. I pulled them off the hatch.
Okay.
I put them on that. That works pretty well for me.
Yeah. So the most recent ones from Scalextric for the DPR, you take it off the hatch, and these are the ones that don't have the big silver can on it, right? They're just basically flat board. Right. Okay. Yeah. Those should be good enough, because the reason Scalextric made those is because they did their PCR system to encourage people to hop up their cars. Mm-hmm. So they realized they needed to provide a more robust chip. So those are the most robust chips, like equivalent to slotted chips.
They are not unable to be blown, however. That's
not what I said.
I discovered that. I was using I've got an NSR Porsche 91710, which has got a pretty hot motor in it, so it's got a fairly good amount of magnets on it. If you run that as a pace car, it heats the motors up like mad, and it blew the motor and the chip. So it's like, what's that? Oh man, smoke's coming out of that. It was pretty dramatic.
If that's super important to you to have that car as a pace car or something, you could do like the guys did in the old days and parallel chips, wire chips in parallel. You know, when it all kind of started and it was just the two solder-in chips, you know, that Scalextric made. Mm-hmm. Dudes were, you know, the speed demons were, you know, adding hot motors and throwing in magnets to go super fast, and they were blowing chips left and right. There's a picture on Slot Forum from years ago of like a Tupperware container just completely overflowing with blown chips, and because they were, you know, the chips weren't capable of running those fast motors with lots and lots of magnets. Yeah, so they discovered that, you know, obviously it was the chip's ability to provide enough amperage for those motors and the magnetic drag. They just doubled up the chips. They literally just wired two chips in parallel, and only one of them was used for the infrared, but both chips were doing the exact same job, so they were both providing the power to get the car going. It's like, okay, you know, whatever works.
Well, I chalked it up to lesson learned.
Well, Mike, with all those chips, you need some dip.
got a party
I
going.
just got one from you.
Looks like you learnt the lesson many times, that's all.
Oh, no, different ways. There are so many ways to break things.
Yeah, that's always true. All right, well, thank you very much for the Club Corner update, Mike. And Dewan has his hand up. What's going on with your club activities, Dewan?
Well, I went on my very first trip to a club. I'd never been to a club. I'd never raced competitively. Went to the Far Out Racing Club event at Electric Dreams on Saturday. And I kind of anticipated that I would not finish last. Well, that dream did not happen. Yeah, it's a world difference between the casual racing that I do. It's not really racing that I do. I kind of like just tour around my track versus getting on one of those, like Dennis said, that's a very fast track and having things tuned, etc. And you know, to add insult to injury, my car that I was using was a Nissan. I can't remember, but it was a Nissan. And I ended up coming in last place, but the winner, which is Ed Shore, a professional racer, of course, using the same exact car. So the only difference was the person holding the trigger, and maybe little tuning differences, but I thought I tuned mine up pretty well. So anyway, here's the results that I have.
Main thing is, yeah.
41 laps behind him.
Oh my goodness.
41 laps. That was the first race. And then the second race, I think is it showing?
Yeah, Dewan, if it's any consolation, I've done that in a real racing car, so don't feel badly.
Yeah, we see 17 people, so 16 people faster than you.
Yeah.
We all start somewhere.
Yes, exactly. So that's it. I finished the second race the same way, 17th place. But I was only 32 laps behind that time.
Oh, so you're getting better already.
Yeah, and I beat a couple people with a couple laps.
Nice.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at those results, there's a couple of really kind of well-known names that are in the bottom half of that list. You know.
Yeah,
like Stephen himself, the original, you know, the Grand Poobah and the benevolent dictator of Far Out.
Exactly.
And I mean, and there's one name completely missing, and that's Frank's sister.
Yes, Frank.
Yeah, I was hoping to, but grandson soccer comes first.
Yeah. So anyhow, that was my first experience in a club environment. But I told him I was my intentions are to potentially start a club out in the Vegas area and have my location as one of the stops, and I'll have a couple of tracks. So hopefully, I have a couple of tracks going when I get things, configured. So I learned a lot.
And you've never raced on that track before either, right?
I practiced on it a few days before. I think it was down there that Tuesday or something. Yeah, so it was. But yeah, I didn't think I would finish dead last, but I sure did. I mean, by a long shot.
I'll just keep going back.
Yeah.
Juan, if it makes you feel any better, I've been racing with them for maybe 5 years. And for the first year and a half, 2 years, I was either last or second to last.
Okay.
It's a learning curve.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you, Dewan. And it looks like Big Den has got something he wants to share for Club Corner. What's going on in your neck of the woods, Big Den?
I think Wayne might have. Did Wayne have his hand up, or no, I can't see it anymore.
He took it down because it's not up anymore. Or
Yeah,
he's doing his real life hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Den. Go ahead, then. I've got a child who's probably just gone to the bathroom, so I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Wayne. Go ahead, Den.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to try a screen share. I was watching a couple of weeks ago, and Dewan gave me an excellent tip. Perhaps I just should put what I want to show on the desktop, and then it'll come up automatically. So thanks for that tip of the week, Dewan. Yeah. But anyway, having said that, let's go see if we can get it first take this time. And yeah,
you open it up and then.
And yeah. Is it there?
Something's coming. There we go. Formula cars.
Yep. Okay. So this is our meeting at Grumpy's Garage last Saturday. Back to the 9 usual suspects. Sort of people had varied a bit over the last couple of meetings. So pretty much all polycar except for my Hesketh languishing back in 6th place there, which is a fly car. Moving right along, just another shot of the field there, and the results pretty close at the top there, as you can see, between the first three, and moving on to the next class being what we call our classic sports car. This time my Thunder slot is in 2nd, so that was a better result. So
Dan, sorry to interrupt. Looks like that 2E is missing a wing.
Yeah, it did start the race with the wing, John, but it parted company somewhere around the track, in I think the second heats. There's one of our younger members, Alex. He's the son of one of our long-term members.
Well, I was going to say that's just what the real car used to do. That's so cool.
Yeah, but he didn't know that. He's got no sense of history whatsoever. I hope he doesn't watch this in replay. Okay. And just another view there. Slotted NSR, and then some scratch builts towards the back of the field there. So a mixture of brands and the results. So
oh, look at there.
Yeah. I'll be dwelling on that one for quite a while. not 53.29 though. Yes, it was quite good. I had a chance of getting up to the other guy, but I had a bad last bracket, and we were pretty even. We had even scores until then. So so it's they're about. I think Alan last week was talking about the polycars not being a performer on one of his tracks, and they were debating whether they would continue with them. But we just found on our shorter, twistier tracks that sometimes their lap times aren't all that far behind the other cars. So I think we'll stick with them. And next race was their LMP and GT1 class. I made a brilliant move here. I loaned what I thought was my 2nd or 3rd best car to the guy who ran 3rd in the pink and silver Spirit car, and again I languished a bit further back in the STP car. So interesting, those two cars lapped within a couple of hundredths of a second when my previous trip to Hobart, and yet the speed differentials on the track up in locally was quite different. And I worked it out to the fact that they run the track on 10 volts, and I think the motor in the light blue car just doesn't get a chance to rev out to get the speed. So
yeah. But
anyway, there was good scores. The winning score there, Kevin, we affectionately know him as the Mongrel, and 104 laps is a track record as far as I can recollect. So
nice.
Yeah. And there's just a couple of shots of the track there. There's young Alex up in the background there. A few of the assorted bods of varying ages there. Obviously, I'm behind the camera, so. And that's a variation of something I want to build. It's using a scale electric March 711 or 721. It's a thing called the Eiffel Land that E21. So anyway, I'll stop the share there. So that one was
that photograph taken at Kyalami in right in Clubhouse Corner.
Yeah. Rolf Stommelin, was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well that'll do.
I was there that day.
You were there that day, really, Dennis?
Oh yeah, I spent half my life at Kyalami when I was a kid.
Oh wow.
I saw lots and lots and lots and lots of fancy cars, Formula Ones. When I was still in high school, I was a member of a Boy Scout troop, and we had our Boy Scout troop had a contract with one of the sports car clubs that had a compound at Kyalami right across the main straight from the pits. So right next, there was a big grandstand that looked out over the main straight and the pits, and right next to it was the Kyalami Grand Prix Club's compound. And we did all the Boy Scouts, we did all the access control for them. And so we always were given service tickets for the day, and which meant you could spend any off-duty time you could spend in the pits. So I used to go right across the Dunlop Bridge and back into the paddock and into the pits and wander around. And I saw plenty of stuff there, man. It was great. And I had it all on 35 millimeter color slides. And when I moved to the US, I can't remember what I did with them, and they're gone. I gave them to a friend of mine, and I don't remember which friend. And when I got back into slot car racing and I wanted to rebuild all those Lola T70s and 512 Ferraris and all the things, 330 P4s that I saw in Kyalami at the 9 hours and things, I couldn't find any of it.
That is unfortunate. That's cool history, though. It's cool that you were there.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. Sometime I'll tell you about the flag hanging episode.
All right. Maybe we'll hear that before the end of today's show. I'm going to do a little club corner, and then we'll get to Jim. So you may have already seen a couple of the heats I posted videos of this morning on my channel. We raced Pro Slot Porsche 911 GT2s for our IROC race. Surprisingly great cars. I posted a heat of that, one of the IROC heats, and we raced our Pioneer Legends. And we don't have any, rules, against doing anything to your tires. So basically people are, using various oils and cleaners and stuff on their Pioneer tires. They seem to be, fairly soft, decent rubber tire. And so, people are generally using, 3-in-1 or NSR tire oil or whatever. And mine had just phenomenal grip. I was pulling laps on the guys during the first couple of heats, which is crazy. So I must also have a slightly faster motor. Great grip, fast motor. I was lapping the guys at least once, if not twice, during the 2-minute heat, which is insane. But then later on, it was an ice rink, and it was ridiculous. Grip always drops off, unless you're continually cleaning the tires throughout the racing. Our rules are you don't clean the tires. You do all your tire prep beforehand and hope for the best for the rest of the race. And I've never had tire grip drop off so drastically than the other night. And, it only happened really badly to a few of the guys. Some of the guys didn't have great grip to begin with, and they still didn't have great grip, but it wasn't terrible. The guys like me and a couple of other guys seemed to have great grip to begin with, and then it just fell off a cliff. and couldn't keep it straight in the straight. It was just, all the way down the straightaway. And we could not figure it out. We thought maybe the tires were picking up gunk, picking up other tire deposits. But when we took them off the track later on at the end of the night, there was no, detectable residue. We didn't, put lighter fluid on it to see what would come off, but it wasn't what we were thinking. It was. Dennis, anybody got any ideas on maybe a different softener that won't go off so quickly, or maybe an explanation as to why it would go off so drastically?
My initial thought was just like yours, that you were picking up gunk because the tire was so sticky at the beginning of the heat.
Yeah.
All that I can think of. Unless the temperature change made a big difference.
I didn't notice any temperature change, but humidity and temperature probably changed throughout the evening. And that's probably right. I should probably put it on the truer and see what comes up on actual something gritty.
Well, or just clean it with
something
lighter fluid or something like that, and see how much crap comes off it.
Yeah, because we did King of the Hill was one of the early Scale Auto 132nd GT cars, and I think it had stock rubber on it, which we were using the Scale Auto cleaner on every time somebody ran their King of the Hill. So those tires got cleaned multiple times. And then we ran the Pro Slots, so they might have left some residue behind that me and the other guys with superior grip were just pulling up. That makes the most sense to me, but it was amazing how much grip we had to start with, and then how little grip we had later on. I've never seen anything like it.
My track is a plastic track. It's Scalextric, but I've had, back in the beginning when I started having people come over and race on Friday nights, I had some guys that would come over and they would use their various tire compounds to improve their traction. And I never used that compound. I would always find that when they first started out in the evening, I would have great grip. Later, after their compound started to dry into the track, it was like my tires picked it up. And I had about 30 cars after a few weeks. I had about 30 cars that I've been messing around with also through the week when the club wasn't over. But I just noticed all my cars were driving really poorly. All the tires had picked up this residue from these compounds that were being used, and basically it glazed the tires. And, I spent hours sorting out tires and getting things cleaned up. I probably spent 3 or 4 hours trying to get all those tires cleaned up, because I couldn't just use like a cat lint roller, stuff like that. I actually had to go get like WD-40 and put it on the tires and break through the glaze and then clean it up. Then I put them in soapy water in the sink. They were all silicone tires. I put them in soapy water in the sink, washed them, rinsed them, put them in the kitchen drying rack, waited for them to dry up, and then started putting them back on cars. But it was a mess. I don't use a compound on that plastic track. And later, one of my buddies who's in the chemistry said, you really don't want to do this because a lot of that stuff will break plastic. It'll also eat through certain paint finishes and stuff too, because most slot car guys aren't really chemists, right? They're not people who know all this other stuff. And I happen to have some guys who do that for a living, and they said, you don't really want to do this all the time if you want your track to last. So I made that rule. Anyhow, just something to know.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense, especially for if silicone is what you primarily use, then pretty much anything their cars put down on the track would get picked up by your silicone tires as they drove around. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. If this were plastic track and we were running silicone tires, I mean, that would have been my first thought. And I think that's probably still what happened. It just happens that we were all rubbing, it was all rubber the whole time. And it just, some of the guys' tires picked it up. what the other guys' tires didn't, I guess. I'll see what happens next week. And we'll maybe I'll have an update on that. Jim, What you got?
Let me get to screen share here. Just wanted to show you why I missed the race last weekend at Electric Dreams.
Nice.
Look at all those Canadian cars.
All those Multimatic Canadian Ford GTs. They had, this is at Velocity in an Invitational at Laguna Seca Raceway. And it was a big deal that they didn't tell anybody about. It was very poorly promoted, in my opinion. But anyway, they had, there were 8 Ford GTs that were built for racing, and they had 7 of them there. And you can see there's 6 here. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. This one is a special one that they built with no rules in mind. So it's a Ford GT, but bigger wing, no air restrictions and so forth. At the very end, there's the original test mule, which is all carbon fiber, and a couple of street ones along the way too. So Ford had a big presence there. Porsche brought 6 917s. 3 of the Can-Am cars here. There's another Can-Am car behind it, and you can just probably barely see the 2 917 Gulf livery Le Mans cars.
How'd that blue and yellow car get in the foreground like that? Is there some fandom going on there?
Maybe just a little bit. I hadn't thought about that, but if I would have thought about that, I would have reversed it and put the red one in the front. But it was a very interesting event. The one of the interesting events within the events, they did minis versus Mustangs. So if you've seen some of those races from the 60s in England, when the minis are racing the Galaxies and so forth, they tried to recreate that. There were about 25 minis, about 5 Mustangs, and they ran the race at night. So it was a very interesting thing that they hadn't done at Laguna Seca before. And just a couple pictures I shot. There's the 917s. This is Stefan Johansson. I'm not sure who's driving this one, but they were, they're just fantastic to watch. And then the other picture I'll show you is a relatively inexpensive car. There were three GTOs there, and they were all.
Were they real legitimate GTOs or repros?
No, this event only allows real cars. So
because you know what happened because I'm sure you know this, but at the last time they had a Ferrari sort of festival at Laguna Seca, 32 of the original 28 cars showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's a Canadian thing too, right? Canadian math.
Exactly.
But this was one of my favorite cars, and so I just thought I'd show you a couple of images from the event. It's on YouTube if you want to. They live streamed it, so there's all kinds of YouTube videos of the various cars there, from Formula One to FIA to IMSA to whatever. But that's why I missed the Electric Dreams race.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, if there's any valid excuse, that's certainly one of them.
Well, I did get a gig with if anybody is familiar with Vintage Motorsport magazine. And I shot for them this weekend, and so they have my images. So in a couple of months, when that magazine comes out, you'll see some of those pictures as well as some others.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing, Jim. And Mike's got his hand up again. What's up, Mike?
Oh, I was going to tell you about the alcohol deal on the urethane tires.
Oh yeah,
it does work. And it seems to work for a longer period of time than just a few laps. So I'm using that.
I did go out and try the isopropyl alcohol on a couple of urethane car tires on my track as well, and it was exactly like Dennis said. It gives them that super grip, like similar to NSR tires after you do the lighter fluid thing. I didn't do a whole lot of laps, but yeah, it's good to hear that it lasts for a while.
Well, I did 45 laps this morning,
and
it held up fairly well. My lap times didn't fall off, so it looks like it's a good cleaning agent for a long period of time.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis, for sure. I'm gonna have that as a tip of the week. So one of these days when we don't have any other tips of the weeks, I'm making a list because I haven't gotten anybody volunteering to do tip of the week, even though plenty of people have plenty of tips, I'm sure. So again, if anybody wants to do a tip of the week, which I will split off into a dedicated video, all you got to do is let me know, and I'll make sure that we get to your tip of the week. Otherwise, we'll just keep pulling them out of our hats. What, John?
We have a new attendee, I think.
Yes, I was going to say, Mr. Palmer, if you want to tell us about yourself, I don't think you've been here before. You are welcome to do so. Otherwise, just say, nah, I'm good. I'll just sit here and listen. Would you like to do an about Mr. Palmer's slot car history?
Well, yeah, I'll be real quick. Actually, I was texting Dennis, and he told me he was on the slot car Zoom, and that's how I ended up here.
Cool.
So Tony Palmer, also known as Brumos RSR on any of the boards that are out there.
Yep.
Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
I'm a proxy whore. I love proxy racing. I don't have a real track, so that's what I do for fun and the stay stress free. In the background, my son is on the road to Indy. He's a race car driver.
What's he driving? It looks like those 2000 cars.
Yeah, USF 2000. So
that's
good. That's him. That's him. The 90 car there. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, he's always up front, guys. Remember that.
and is he in the Pro Series?
USF 2000. So on the road to Indy.
Because there's there's the amateurs for old folks like me, and then there's a Pro Series for the serious.
So he runs on the weekends where an IndyCar runs. So he's there's USF 2000, Pro 2000, Indy Lights, and then IndyCar. So that's what we're working on right now. So usually I'm out chasing money for him, and when I don't do that, I get to play with my cars. So that's what I get to do. So. Yeah, a lot of help from Dennis.
And I'm sure you have all kinds of help that you can provide as well. Bruno
yeah, he's done a lot of proxies, and he's done really well in a lot of proxies.
Yeah, I'm not even a proxy hound, and I know your handle from proxies and other things. So thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you can come back.
It's good to have him.
Yeah, unfortunately I do have to run. My wife actually just called me to dinner, so I do plan on joining more often. So thanks, guys, and have a great rest of the night.
All right, thanks, Tony. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you again in the future.
You will, I promise.
Awesome. Well, I don't seem to see any more club corners. What are you pointing at now, John?
Wayne, he's got his hand up again.
Oh, now he's got both of them up. Okay, go ahead, Wayne.
Unmute myself.
There you go.
So, does anyone remember that I built a slot car recently?
We heard about that.
I think there was a time when you just kind of glossed over it.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Tell us more.
I'll cut to the chase. It was October 31 when it hit the track, and this is the track we took it to race on. It's a replica of Sebring in the USA, which is a popular venue for endurance racing, and this was the build process of a 3-hour endurance race. It took place at a HO Racing Club, which is the HO Racing Club I cut my teeth at back in the early noughties, the Derby HO Racing Club. So this is in Derby, in the centre of Britain, and they've recently gained an interest in digital 32 scale racing. The host club owns Carrera track, and they race Carrera cars on Carrera track. But this is Ninko track, and that's Gary Skip, who's running a Disca 3-hour endurance race in their venue, so that they can learn and replicate said endurance races in the future. Now, if I briefly stop the share, I've got another screen. I've got to flick over to another tab.
I got the timer running this time, Wayne.
No worries. I'm going straight to the results. So the two cars I built got entered by two teams, two-man teams, and they were Chimera Motorsport, who finished 4th overall. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 4th. And my car, the other one, the 3D printed car, was WSR 3D. And we had a 3-hour race with what turned out to be a 9-lap difference between the front runners. And everybody got nearly into the 800s. We got 64 laps difference covering this lot all the way down to the 8th. So yeah, that was the result of 3 hours of racing. And the winners were, you'll recognize this guy. This is John Underwood.
Mr. Underwood.
And his teammate with their similar Mercedes. And then this was Chimera Motorsport, my standard built car, which was what they called an AM car that day. And this guy, Dave, has been in the chat once, but we didn't actually hear from him. He was with us about 2 weeks ago, and I think we missed the fact that he was there. And then that's myself and my brother with our 3D printed car. And that's the end of the Club Corner for the day.
So when I saw,
congratulations,
I saw WSR 3D had posted a, we got second place and here's the car picture.
Yeah,
and it looked different than I recall the one that you were working on and showing us pictures of. Was that my bad memory, or was it a different chassis in some way?
It was the same. It was the same. It was the same stuff. The difference that I'd got a red motor pod as opposed to black one.
Okay.
And my red motor pod had got that little angle in it.
Yeah.
You remember I'd tilted the motor pod to get the motor to be lower to the track at the front.
Yeah. So it wasn't the same car that you were showing us. It was the same models, but printed a second time with black material instead of red.
Yeah. Well, he's learned from what I did with the car in the preparation process, and he's made a couple of little changes to the print. He's constantly developing, constantly receiving feedback from end users, and constantly minor tweaks get added to the car. He doesn't get a new revision number or anything like that, but they just get improved marginally. And the one thing I know that he's done is he's cut the slots in the top of the front axle holders that allow you to retrofit the OEM light circuit board, like I'd done with the Dremel. And he's also molded on or printed onto the back diffuser the vertical supports that would support the rear tail lights. Whereas I was made to fold, try to find some material to make something, and I ended up folding yogurt pot to support the lights there. I know you remember it well.
I knew that it was the same maker, right, and more or less the same as, but not the actual thing that you were building, because basically what you had built was in order to make improvements on it, and then he took those improvements and printed, did the change to the model and then printed a new one, and that's what you raced.
We raced the third print he ever made. The first two just didn't quite fit the body shell and silly little things like that, which is the iterative design that you talk about. You print one, you try one, and if you don't work, you mod it. I think it was his third effort that we ended up racing. And he took a few things back from that, but it's essentially the same part. So at the end of the day, I took a commercially available product, which he released about a fortnight before the event, so it was available to everyone if they knew about it, and made the modifications that most slot car racers would do, except for the one where I asked him for a special motor pod, which you can actually do with a stock one as long as you're pretty handy with the Dremel. It's just that I asked him to make that as a part of the print. The stock car, the AM type car, has a few advantages over the podded car. Unfortunately, the podded car came in at about 68 grams initially, and I managed to get that down to about 63. No, is that right? No, 86. It came in at 86, not 68, and that was overweight by about 9 grams. I got that down to about 84, I think. but we were still overweight, I think, for a car running a 20k handout motor. Now, the AM cars had got that weight advantage because the limit was 75. So I think that they had a power to weight advantage that we couldn't replicate. So some of our advantages were masked by the fact that we were a little overweight. And what was the other thing I noticed? The axle, the weight of the complete rear axle in the stock scale electric car is about 7.5 grams, including wheels. I don't know if there were tires on it at the time, but when you build what they called a pro car and replaced all that with a slotted system, even though I'd done that work on that crown gear to make its boss smaller, it all ended up weighing about 11 grams. So some of the excess weight that I was carrying was not just weight, it was rotational weight, which you have to accelerate and you have to brake it every time you come to a corner. And it was also weight that in a location I didn't really want it, which is a little bit further back than I really wanted it. So my weight distribution front to rear wasn't where I wanted it. The standard car was further forward.
Oh, I think that's your wife, Wayne.
Yeah.
Not mine. It's not happening here.
Well, thank you very much thanks for the update, Wayne.
Great drive.
And yeah, good job on the second place.
That's cool.
Podium's a podium.
Yeah.
And
we enjoyed it.
Dennis, you've got your hand up. What's up?
We did the round 6 of the Revo Slot Proxy today.
Oh.
Couple of shots to show you. This was the track. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. A little bit, about 20 minutes south of where I am, down in Aliso Viejo, or in Mission Viejo, actually. Phil Nyland, the guy at the end there, it's his house, his track out on his patio. He drove, Mill Conroy drove, and Gary Donahoe drove. I tried to qualify the cars, and I was so awful that they put me behind the counter and behind the computer and wouldn't let me near them for the rest of the day. I don't know what I was up to. I just haven't driven a lot of laps on that track. And the problem is it's a very, very similar layout to mine, but it's not the same. And so my timing was off all over the place. Anyway, we had some good runs. These are all Revo Slot cars, and they were all quite tuned up by the guys who entered the proxy. Some of them were really, really quick.
How long is the track, Dennis?
16 feet length by 7 feet wide. So it's a little bigger than mine, but and a very similar layout. That's the top 3, a Supra and two Vipers. There were Porsches and Marcoses and Ferrari F40s, basically all the GT2 cars in the Revo Slot range were eligible. The McLarens obviously hadn't arrived in time, and you know, the open cars, like the 333 Ferrari and then the Toyota LMP were not eligible. But
I was going to say the car in the middle looks like Greg was there.
So what did they do to make
piece
the
of
Revos really, really quick, Dennis? Do you know?
Say again?
What did they do to their Revos to make them so much better than the others?
I think that the guy spent a lot of time sorry, I'm just trying to get to one more that I'll go with in a moment. The guy spent a lot of time getting the gear meshes very, very smooth, making sure that the bearings were really well aligned and very low rolling resistance. I'm sure they soaked all the grease out of them and oiled them with some light oils. The tires were very well trued on some of them. And then there may well have been a little bit of weight tuning here and there. I don't know. But some of the cars sounded really rough and didn't perform very well. The top cars were extremely smooth, had good grip, I think that some of the guys tried to use too soft a tire, and that didn't really help those cars. The stock tires are really not bad, but I think some of the guys went down to either the 22s or the 15s that BRM have, and that was a little, certainly the 15s was not a good idea, because you can actually see the wear and the scuffing and the balling of the tire. This one, this last little bit is just a little bit of video. This is during our pizza break.
I was gonna say, I'm waiting for a jump scare.
No. And this is the problem of living in Southern California.
Yeah, terrible.
It looks terrible.
Anyway, so there it is, guys. That was today, and we finished at like 3:30, which is why I was just a couple of minutes late getting back to be on the call. But it's another proxy down, and the next one here will be at my track, and it'll be the Can-Am proxy that's also on Home Racing World.
By the way, I loved his birdhouse. That's a VW camper.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Good
and as we had bad weather at Laguna Seca too, it didn't get above 80 degrees.
Oh man, how did you cope? You know, running around with coats on and stuff.
We've had the most beautiful weather here the last couple of days. It's been absolutely stunning.
That'd be nice. No, it'd be completely out of season. I'd be like, why?
Oh, we had an out of season thing last week where it was like 90 degrees down here, and we sweltered for a couple of days. It was really funny.
Does that affect your track being outside at all?
Not really in terms of damage or anything. What I have found is that the traction changes with temperature a lot. So if it's really hot, it gets slick and slippery. In the sort of Goldilocks zones of like 80 degrees down to 70 degrees, the track is really, really nice. And then it starts to get slippery again when it gets cold. So during the winter months, if I have to run any kind of proxy here, I like to get all the racing done by 4 o'clock, because as the sun goes down and the temperature starts to drop, the grip just goes away.
That's like a real racetrack.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, temperature.
Wrong tires. Wrong tires in the cold, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but my track's absolutely at its best at around between 75 and 80 degrees. That's when you get the best traction.
Keep in mind, 60 degrees is cold for us.
Yeah. And temperature plays a role with plastic track. Pretty much any track. During the winter months when I had races here at my house, it's in my garage, so it's fairly cool during the winter months in there, and I have a kerosene heater, and if I practice a little bit before I turn the heater on, and then after the heater's been on for a while, it's night and day difference, just because the ambient temperature is a few degrees higher, that the grip is so much better. And that's that's without doing any cleaning or tire treating or anything. That's literally just car on cold track versus car on not so cold track.
For anyone in Europe, that's 21 to 26 degrees C.
Something like that. I don't know what the degrees were.
I just went to Google to convert them.
Speaking of tracks, cars on tracks and whatnot, I kind of wanted to plug Gary Skip's channel that he's created recently. Slotcarazing, I believe is I'm not sure how he pronounces it, but it's basically Slotcarazing or Slotcarazing, or I'm not sure. Anyways, that's the name of the channel. I put the link in the chat, and so if you're not already subscribed to Gary Skip's Slotcarazing channel, hit the link in the description. Go see his videos. He's already uploaded a couple of really informative, in-depth videos going over differences between, for example, a Scalextric set out of the box and a Carrera set, and a Scalextric car on a Carrera track and a Carrera car on a Scalextric track, and just kind of giving a really great in-depth overview of the pros and cons, pluses and minuses, and the differences between Scalextric and Carrera, which are easily the most popular two slot car set brands in the world. And his most recent video, which I believe he just released today, is an in-depth comparison between toy car and professional car, or otherwise known as more of a hobbyist level car. He compares a Scalextric, was it an LMP car? Yeah, Scalextric LMP to a slotted LMP, and goes over all the differences from how the chassis are put together to the body weight and how they perform on track and stuff. And it's great for anybody out there who's watching this video who has basically been sticking to their brand, right? If you're Carrera, you've been buying Carrera cars. Maybe you've got Scalextric, you've been buying only Scalextric cars, or maybe you've bought Scalextric and Carrera, but you haven't ventured into slotted or NSR or Scale Auto or any of those things. That's a really informational, helpful video for kind of why you might consider doing that, or maybe stay away from it. So again, if you're not already looking at Gary Skip's Slotcarazing channel, hit that link, go check it out, subscribe, like, comment, all those wonderful things. Does anybody else have any channels they want to promote that we haven't already promoted? I mean, there's obviously John Kitt's Scale Car Garage channel. Anybody else got anything they want to plug, essentially? Plugging?
There's James Cleve's channel.
Oh yeah, Cleavetech.
Cleavetech. Some of that now is of more interest because he's just finished a series on preparing a Revo slot car. And the rest of it is all commercial racing, really, and steel cars and flexi cars and things like that. And it's really good. But some of the stuff that he's doing now is a little bit more applicable to us.
Great suggestion. If anybody wants to help me out so I don't forget later, put Cleavetech in there or put a link to the Cleavetech channel. Jim, do you have a suggested channel? You want to plug your own channel? That'd be great.
Yeah, plug my own channel, NorCal Slot Car Scene and Vintage Racing. So it's a combination of 32nd scale, HO, and a little bit of vintage racing. I'm not getting much play on that, but that's fine. It'll go on there. Trying to do just some different things and some how-to articles and that stuff. The next video, probably up in a few days, is on HO T-Jet car with a Whisperjet belt drive. And it's being produced. It was built way back when, but it's being reproduced now by RTHO. So he sent me some samples to work with on that. And I'm getting close. I'm at 916 subscribers. So I'm getting close to that 1,000 threshold.
Nice.
So hopefully around the first of the year. So be able to monetize it and get a little money to pay for some of the stuff that I'm paying for now out of my pocket. So
every little bit helps, right? Help a guy out and stick your link into the chat so I remember to copy and paste it into the description.
I'll do that. So thanks. Yeah, just plug myself. Thanks.
Absolutely. And of course, Travis was on earlier in the show. I don't know if he's still on, but Travis of That Slot Car Guy has a great channel with lots of quick, here's this cool car, here's the car on the track, and that kind of stuff. Comparing cars and showing off new cars. Of course, Dave Kennedy with Slot Car News Official. Always lots of great information on his channel. If anybody has any YouTube channels that they want me to link, just put it in the chat and I'll put it in the video description. Bill popped on. Bill, did you have something that you wanted to show and tell or ask about or talk about?
No, I actually accidentally just hit the mute button. But I will say thanks to Dennis. I called him earlier this week, yesterday, to get some help regarding getting my first chassis kits to get started with some modeling as well. I figure I'll wear clothes while I do this. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Bill. And Of course, Electric Dreams. Dennis does a lot of great videos for the Electric Dreams YouTube channel as well. We've got
I haven't
15
done
minutes.
any for a while, actually.
It's been a little while. Are you working on
Yeah,
anything?
it is. But right now I have a big surgical scar across the front of my face. So my face is even more suited to radio right now than it is normally.
What, did you get a facelift or something?
I wish. No, I had
post-lobotomy,
another
I
one
think.
of those little skin cancer things cut
Oh
out.
yeah, stupid skin cancer.
Right across the front here.
Well,
That
hopefully
won't be
you guys got something coming up at some point, but still lots of great videos already there to check out.
Dennis, is there any racing coming up at the Electric Dreams?
The next big race at Electric Dreams is a team event on December 11th. It's for slotted Group C cars. It's teams of 2 people. And it's slotted Group C's, inlines only, stock motors only, but pretty much the rest you can play with as long as it's all slotted parts. No magnets, but you're allowed to use the slotted tungsten magnets that fit into the magnet pockets. Pretty much that's about it. And seem to remember it runs, I think, there's qualifying, and then there's semifinals, and then there's a final. So the semifinals, I think, are an hour each. So it's 10 minutes per lane, and the final for the top 6 cars is 20 minutes per lane. So it's 2 hours.
Info on the website, because that sounds interesting to me.
If not, I'll try and get Marco to put it there, but I think there is something on the website.
I think Frank might be at Electric Dreams. Is that where you are, Frank?
Well, I was, but now I'm at Big Lou's.
Oh, show us.
For a race.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Show us.
I think his connection might be a little.
Yeah. How do I do a? Oh, I'll just turn it around. There it is.
Oh, very cool. We can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not working out.
Oh, it's not. Darn. How do I? Okay. Anyway, that's where I'm at now, Big Lou's. I just left Electric Dreams. But they were asking about all the rules for the race to be conducted is on the website.
Yeah, his connection is so spotty. I can't even stop his video from here. I'm gonna ask you to just go ahead and disable your video, Frank, if you can hear. That way we can at least understand your voice when you speak.
Big Lou's is the one in Culver City.
Yeah, Big Lou. You can find it. You can find quite a bit on Facebook, and I believe they post videos on YouTube as well. Interestingly, I printed up some border inserts for the Scalextric, because their track is a Scalextric Sport track, and they do primarily magnet racing, I believe, and they were flattening some of their borders, so they had me print up a bunch of my flat border inserts to replace on their bumped borders. Probably because guys were like, "That stupid bump border can knock my car out." But it's good, they're back to racing, and Frank is racing there. Can you hear us, Frank? I think, is he gone? No, he's still there. He's got his microphone muted. Can you hear us? Oh wow, yeah, that's not happening. Sorry, Frank. Your connection is just not happening. So you'll have to do a club report next week and tell us what happened.
Yeah, and Jim, I did check on the website. I don't see anything there at the moment, apart from the date, which is December 11th. I'll get Marco to try and put something up there, or I'll get him to send you an email about it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
And for for those watching this video who might want to go see what they can see about that, is there like on Electric Dreams' website, is there like a club category to click on, or a racing category, or events or something like that? No?
I'm on there now. I'm not seeing anything, but they do show the date of the race.
You're muted, Dennis, but you're talking at us.
Well, I was pressing the button, but I had a different window up, and maybe it doesn't work then if I press the space bar while I'm in a different window.
That's true.
Probably not. No, I'll get Marco to start thinking about that. I think that racing is a new concept down there at the moment, and people are only now starting to get interested in races. You know, we've had a lot of guys coming in, buying stuff, going away, going other places, but now that we're starting to organize things, organize races there, there's a lot more interest. So our website needs to reflect that interest now. We need to get that done.
I would have to agree that would be a wise decision to go ahead and slap an events link or something like that on their page for advertising the racing that happens there. So for sure, looking forward to that. All right, gentlemen, we are down to our last.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Frank. You got better signal?
Yeah, I went outside. I apologize. I believe it's on the far out slot car page on Facebook. Where I saw it.
Oh,
not the website, but Dennis is right. Marco needs to get it on the website.
Okay. So what's happening at the race that you're at tonight right now, Frank?
Well, I just got here. People are practicing. We start racing about 7. So I'll be able to get my cars on the track. We're racing what we call GT 25K. It's a magnet, and as well as, and that's a Carrera GT and a Carrera DTM, also a magnet race. The 25K, of course, 25,000 RPM. The DTMs, we use the NSR 20K motors in those in stock gearing in both classes.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll see if my cars. Last time I didn't do so well. My car's broke, so hopefully they won't break this time. But you know, if you keep it in the slot, they don't break. You know.
That's true. You know, that got that razor thin line between staying on and coming off with, you know, high downforce, fast motored magnet racing.
Exactly.
All right. Well, knock on wood that Frank doesn't completely destroy his cars during the race.
Thank you.
We're down to the last few minutes. Does anybody have anything they want to ask or bring up or talk or tell or show or chat? Or should I just hit the stop button so you guys can just more casually chat? I'm okay with that too. Jim, you ready to stop, or do you got something you want to? Yeah, he's ready to wave goodbye. I'm okay with that. We'll just chat more casually. As always, if you can attend a live Zoom chat, please do so. It's a whole lot of fun. More fun than you're having right now watching a recording. Just Google Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom and ignore the video results, and I'm sure you'll find a link to it with an invitation when it's going to happen. Then click the link to join when it happens. Until then, we shall wave goodbye. Everybody wave. Bye. Bye.
Bye.